Right, that's right. So, Alexis, since you mentioned starting out in a big retail, can you share what that experience taught you about the gaps or challenges in the making fashion more sustainable?
Yeah, so the company or the two retailers that I worked for were Macy's and then Farm Rio. So they're like really big retailers. And now I was in their marketing department, so I was doing copywriting. And you don't really see too much of like this is how stuff gets produced, or at least I didn't at Macy's just because of how large the company is.
Yeah.
But one thing that I learned in the time that I was there is like so much of the stuff that we were then doing marketing for was like, okay, you have this sale, and then next month you're working on this next sale, and then you're working on this next sale. And so you really just do see how fast that cycle is from like, okay, this came in like 3 months ago, and now it's
Right,
already on sale because they have more product, because they want to push more product. So
right.
that's kind of like where that started opening my eyes. And
Mm,
then Farm Rio now is a lot bigger in the US. I actually joined their team when they were launching globally. So I wasn't like really familiar with them, but because it was smaller at the time, that's when I really started to see more about like the production timeline. So from, okay, this is the sketches, this is when the samples from start to finish, saw more of how that process went on. And then also just like looking at the fabrics and everything, because as the collections would be ready, like then I would be in the showroom and I'd get to see them before they were actually available to the public. And, their price point is quite high. Like dresses kind of fall in like the $250 range. Like that's not just something that I'm personally going to buy. It's out of my budget.
yeah.
So then I started to understand more about like, oh, well, this is the fabric that they're saying that they're using. And then as I'm writing marketing copy, I'm kind of like highlighting all of these things. But in the production process, I'm like, I don't know if I'm seeing that myself. So it was more all of a sudden I was seeing these disconnect in like the things that I needed to write to promote these companies and just the behind the scenes things. And I'd already kind of been cognizant of that a little bit. But then once you start to really see it firsthand, I don't know, you just like the shades get drawn open and you're like, this is what's happening here, what's happening at other places that are
Yeah.
not even considering sustainability at all.
Right. That's such an eye-opening perspective, especially seeing those disconnects firsthand. When you started noticing that gap between the marketing message and the actual production reality, how did it shape the kind of connect or conversation you want to create afterward?
I would say that, I mean, because I do have a background in journalism, I'm very used to just like going and researching things myself. So
Mm,
that's where the process started for me.
yeah.
And then I think because I am on the marketing side, it really just came down to the verbiage that they're using. And then me realizing that so many other companies do the same exact thing, use the same scare tactics like, oh, you need to have a sense of urgency. You need to buy this now. If you don't buy this, you're missing out on this trend. And just
Right.
really putting those pieces together that everybody's using that, and then
Of course.
seeing that like in the conversations that I have with friends, like, oh, we have this event coming up and they feel like they need to buy something new for it, or like, oh, Thanksgiving, I need to buy this sale. Just realizing it was literally just putting all of those puzzle pieces
Right.
together. So then as I kind of wanted to open up the conversation, I'm like, okay, how can we just break out of this bullshit
Hmm.
that is whatever it currently exists as?
No, it reminds me of episode that I had before with a United Nations speaker. She explained how the companies or the brands manipulate us to buy more stuff, and the branding tactics, the marketing, the even the lights that they use, the color they use in their marketing, and how it all connected to each other and make us buy more, especially on during the holiday season, right? We're having right now.
Yeah, for anything related to sustainability, like can obviously tell you there's just so much green, because green and nature imagery, that means they're sustainable and it's everywhere. And you're like, it doesn't really mean anything.
Totally.
What would
And
you
this
say,
whole like
Aika?
concept, no, this whole concept of object obsoleteness, that is what it all is. Just kind of having this urgency of being like, if you don't buy, you're going to miss out.
Exactly. It's all about creating the false sense of urgency. Aika, from your perspective as both a creator and an attorney, how do you
Mhm.
think you can hold brands accountable for this kind of greenwashing? without losing consumer trust in the process?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Well, I can only speak for myself, I guess. I guess like one of the things for me is that I almost never buy new anymore. And if I want something, I always go with a secondhand first approach, which has worked fairly well. I mean, I still wear designer clothes. I mean, this little shirt is Helmut Lang, but I got it at Buffalo Exchange for like $20. I don't know how you can hold consumers responsible just because I think the system in itself is broken and we need to like having a busy bee worker telling them to come up with a solution when the tap is not closed on the upstream, and that's where it needs to be. And that is the question for the legislators, for the lobbyists, for the people who have real money and real interest, honestly.
Right.
Yeah, I think going off of that, like, I think we as consumers hold a lot more power than we think we do. So a lot of it is just voting with your money, which I know is like essentially become a very cliche phrase at this point. But like a lot of people over the last year have been boycotting Target. And you can see with their shareholders and with their profit margins, like that's taken a real hit on them. And I think they had to elect a new CEO or something. I could be completely wrong there. So somebody will need to fact check me on that. But like it really did impact their business versus like legislators didn't do anything. Like that was all just consumers deciding to boycott them and put their money somewhere else. So I feel like that almost will have more of an impact than anything, which I do think is unfortunate.